Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Farzy Show. My name is Mark Farzetta here at the Steven Singer Studios. We got Sixers conversation today. That's what we're going to have and enjoy with all of you as we react to the 76ers game from yesterday afternoon at 1 o'clock. That wrapped up with one heck of a barrage from the 76ers, but it was too little too late, unfortunately, as they couldn't come back from 26 points down in total and 9 turnovers in the first quarter. They couldn't come back. They still lost by 4 points. It was nice to see how they played in the second half, but it wasn't enough. So we got plenty of Sixers conversation. We got plenty of Sixers reaction. Here's how this is going to work today. Normally speaking, we have a guest. Not today. I have way too much I need to get off my chest with all you fine people. We will follow your reactions. We will follow your comments throughout the show. I know we normally do our social media check-in a little bit later in the program. I'm going to be trying to follow your comments as the show goes on today throughout. For example, just right out of the gate, I'll just say this. Oh, Dan Schwartz leading off. Nice to see you. Sixers will rebound. They aren't fraud Phillies. Fair enough. What else do we got? Matt's checking in saying, what a sad game. Yes, it was a sad game, Matt. See, just like that, I'll be looking at your reactions throughout the show today and looking at your comments, trying to follow it as best as I can while we're on with the next hour live. But let's start off with this. We got some Eagles conversation. Nick Sirianni addressed the media. The Phillies, they took 2 or 3 from the Nationals in a just bizarre game. One game included the dumbest base running blunder I've ever seen in my entire life. The other included the net falling down in the third game yesterday. But they won, and they won 2 or 3. So, hey, all right, cool. So anyway, back to the Sixers. I said after the game on social media, tweeted out, congratulations to the Atlanta Hawks on the 3 greatest quarters of basketball they'll ever play. And really it came down to the first quarter, because that was where I think you had the healthy balance of both god-awful 76ers basketball and damn near picture-perfect Atlanta Hawks basketball. For instance, Trae Young shooting, 76% in the first quarter? Oh, my God. We knew in this series there was going to be a game or two where Trae Young would go off. I didn't think it was going to be a quarter that included 75+% from the from 3 or from the floor, and he was just amazing. Bogdanovich was incredible. Herter was incredible. I mean, basically everybody played picture perfect basketball for the Hawks in that first quarter. And on the other end of the spectrum, I should say, the 76ers could not play a worse brand of basketball than we saw in that first quarter. They looked unprepared. They looked like they were the road team playing a little skittish. They looked like they couldn't control the basketball. Joel Embiid, God bless him, going out there playing on the torn meniscus. But Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid cannot, throughout the course of a game, combine for 9 turnovers throughout the course of a game. Ben Simmons can't have 5 turnovers. Joel Embiid can't have 4 turnovers. And we're going to go through the first quarter turnovers isolated in a second. But through the course of a game, you can't have 9 turnovers amongst 2 of your most ball-dominant players on the court. And then you also can't have one of those guys shoot 3 for 10 from the foul line. And ladies and gentlemen, let this be the last time we have to do this disclaimer. Ben Simmons, I think, is a great basketball player. Well-deserving of 3 All-Star appearances, yada, blah, 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 blah. We don't need a disclaimer. Hit your free throws. Shoot the basketball. Attack the rim. In the second quarter, in the second half, we saw Ben Simmons do those things a little bit more. He was aggressive early. He was attacking the rim. Had a great reverse layup in the first quarter. Went after the rim. All that is great. The turnovers, the foul shots, and just the ability to shoot from the outside. Not from the outside like the three-point line, like a mid-range game. Ben Simmons needs to develop those things. Charles Barkley said it best last week. The Sixers are going to be held back from an actual championship, not a good playoff run, not possibly a conference finals appearance, but a championship run because Ben Simmons won't expand his game. But looking at the way he played in this particular game, sure, he was aggressive, but yeah, was he lackadaisical with the basketball at times? Absolutely. Was he terrible from the free throw line? Absolutely. We don't need a disclaimer of rattling off the great things Ben does in the game because we all already know that. What we need to focus on are the things he needs to improve upon. And 3 for 10 in a playoff basketball game from a ball-dominant guard is inexcusable. especially when you are getting the version of Ben Simmons that we're always begging for, which is the aggressive rim attacking version of Ben Simmons. Because if he's going to the rim and he's getting fouled, then guess what? He has opportunities for and ones at the free throw line. Or he could take away the idea of the hack-a-ben a little bit later in a game as well. That to me is just that's just a glaring need for this basketball team. But let's start off with this. I can't get past it. And I don't think most people can get past it either, because I feel like when you're watching a basketball game, anybody, and you don't even have to have played basketball at any point in your life, but I feel like just anybody who's a basketball fan and has watched enough basketball, like, can realize that you don't turn the basketball over. In any sport, you don't turn it over. And then you got to hit your free throws. I think those are two things that the common man can watch a game and go, I could probably not hand the ball to the other team. I could probably knock down 70% of my free throws, right? Maybe that if you had to play basketball for. But the turnover thing is just what's so amazing, because I can't describe it better than saying they looked like the road team playing the number one seed. The Sixers didn't look like the number one seed. They looked like a team playing the number one seed that already was riding a high of winning your first playoff series since, 07, 06? Excuse me, 17, 16? So the Sixers come out in the first quarter. First thing that happens, you see Embiid travel. They're like, all right, stuff's going to happen. He's getting his legs back under him. And by the way, I just rewatched about an hour ago. I rewatched the first quarter just so I could further wrap my mind around it. And as I'm going through it, Sixers lose, Simmons loses his dribble. 3 the other way. Same quarter, obviously. Simmons then throws that interception, which, by the way, Danny Green had his back tugged on, that was never even replayed by the ESPN crew, let alone talked about by Hubie Brown, who later then ripped the Sixers for that what would be their second lazy pass. I only thought there was maybe one lazy pass. The pass to Danny Green, I thought was actually a good thread of the needle from Ben Simmons, but he got tugged on the back. Still resulted in a turnover. It goes the other way after that. They get another 3 after that. So that's 2 threes right there out of that's 6 points right there over turnovers. Then Embiid has the bad pass on the baseline, gets picked off, goes the other way to the alley-oop for Clint Capella to throw down. So where are we at? 8 points just off those 3 turnovers so far. Then you had the Embiid bad pass right there. It was also later in the quarter. Simmons lost his dribble. George Hill threw a pass out of bounds that ended up being a 2 the other way. So we're at 10 points just like that. And that's not even all 9 turnovers in the first quarter alone by the 76ers. It's inexcusable. And for Ben Simmons to be as good as he is, to lose his dribble twice in that first quarter and have that result in 5 points, a 3 and a 2 the other way, is inexcusable. And I don't know, as a coach with Doc Rivers, what you do from this point on to try to drill that into your players' heads that you can't turn the basketball over and you have to protect it. Because I don't really think there's not, like, if you're not going to have Doc Rivers coaching fundamentals in the playoffs, right? You got to rely on your players to do that. What Doc Rivers can control, though, is who the hell is guarding Trae Young. Because Danny Green was getting spun around like a top out there with Trae Young. Matisse Thybulle struggled mightily, who was like my hero in this series to be guarding Trae Young. He got spun around in the first quarter or the first half as well. Then he straightened his act out in the second half. And I felt like it was night and day between the first quarter and the first half and the second half of the 76ers game against the Hawks in game 1. I think the second half of that game not only is what I want to see happen for the rest of this series, but it's also what I expect to see for the rest of this series. I don't think the Hawks are ever going to shoot that great again. I mean, everybody was dropping it in from beyond the arc for the Hawks. Everybody was dropping it in. But the way the Sixers played that defensively, their rotations were way off, which Doc Rivers got into after the game. Their hustle seemed optional at times throughout the first half. Second half started to bounce back. But really, you just saw a porous performance defensively from one of the best defensive teams in the NBA that the Sixers had been all season long, especially with Joel Embiid on the floor. So those are all things that you got to clean up between now and game 2. Again, I don't think the Hawks will shoot nearly as well as they did in that first quarter, especially in first half entirely. But the things that you can control for the Sixers and what Doc Rivers can control, again, is who is covering Trae Young. It seems like, and I loved hearing this from Ben Simmons after the game. Ben came out when he was asked about it from a friend of the show, Rich Hoffman from The Athletic. He was asked about guarding Trae Young. And 2 separate occasions, He talked about how the refs have to let him play. And I will say this, it didn't go to the degree of blaming the refs for losing. I don't think the Sixers are dumb enough for that, which is good by them. But he definitely said they have to let him play. And if they can let him be 6'10 and be physical with Trae Young, then guess what? Then he's going to guard him. He was asked about going from Bogdanovich to Trae Young in terms of who he was guarding. And Ben flat out just said, yeah, I'd like to cover Trae Young. If that's the case, the Doc Rivers meant, hey, you got to let Ben Simmons on Trae Young and say, hey, anybody else can beat you. Don't let Trae Young beat you. And that's the mentality, and that's the strategy the Sixers have to have going forward. Hopefully that's what Doc Rivers does in terms of the adjustment from game 1 to game 2. If your best player your best defender is telling you, hey, guess what? If you're defensive player of the year candidate, or in your mind, the defensive player of the year, if you're Doc Rivers, Ben Simmons says to you, put me on Trae Young, you got to put him on Trae Young. If that's what he's saying after the game, that he wants to happen, all right, then you got to make that happen. So I expect that to happen in the second game here tomorrow night. I also expect to see a much better version throughout the game from Matisse Thybulle, so he can be another option to throw at Trae Young. Because I do think overall, even with Ben Simmons on him, one of the best ways to go about this, because you're not going to have him on the court at the same time at all times, but one of the best ways to go about this is to throw different looks at him. The guy that I have the most concern about right now is Danny Green. Ben Simmons' free throw shooting certainly concerning. However, all around game, I am terrified about Danny Green. Didn't have a great first series of the playoffs. This first game where you were going to rely on him to be a defensive asset, he was not. And then you would also rely on him normally for outside shooting, three-point ability. You couldn't rely on that for this game. I mean, at some point, and I don't expect it to happen now, but I wouldn't be shocked if later in this series, if he continues to be a problem, you start to see Matisse Thybulle get even more minutes as this series goes on. Briefly, Tyrese Maxey continues to look like a guy who just doesn't give a damn if it's the playoffs, if he's a rookie. He had a couple of N1 situations that I thought the refs didn't call. I thought he played a good game when he was on the floor. But bottom line is it's going to come down to your stars. And it comes down to Ben Simmons. It comes down to Joel Embiid. It comes down to guys being able to hit shots from the outside, and Danny Green certainly isn't one of those guys. And I give a lot of credit to Matisse Thybulle as well, who Doc Rivers said after the game has gotten more shots up over the last week than anybody, simply trying to add to his game. Go figure, a younger player trying to get better. Add to his game so he can not just be a defensive threat out there on the floor, a defensive specialist, but also somebody who can shoot from the outside. But Doc Rivers got all this stuff after the game. Ben Simmons certainly got into this stuff, and Joel Embiid obviously talked about his knee after the game as well. We'll let you hear from all of it, but let's start it off with this. First, this is Doc Rivers on the difference between the first half of the game and the second half of the game, in particular when it came to the turnovers. Here's Doc.
We didn't do those things. You know, I thought we started with a better sense of urgency. We changed a couple of things on Young. But more importantly, we took care of the darn ball. You know, and so, you know, when you look at the stats, if someone looked at the stats and said, wow, the Sixers shot 55% basically, and the Hawks shot 51%, and the Sixers lost, you're going to go to a number, and the numbers are turnovers. That was the difference.
Turnovers was absolutely the difference in the game. Defensive ability in the first quarter was a big part of that as well. But the thing that I just won't be able to get over is watching bad passes from Ben Simmons. One in particular, again, the one with Danny Green, I don't really put on him. The losing his dribble, Ben Simmons doing that multiple times in the first quarter. Joel Embiid just not having a handle on the basketball. And it's not like he had been off for it's not like Joel Embiid had been off for a month. Somebody yesterday talked about Joel Embiid and his conditioning. I'm not expecting him to fall out of shape in a couple days, really. So I wasn't really looking for anything in particular from that, but it was typical stuff that you'd seen a lot from Joel Embiid. You rarely saw Ben Simmons lose his dribble, especially when he was trying to go through the paint time after time against the Hawks. That was something that I think is an anomaly. The shooting from the Hawks is an anomaly. I fully expect the Sixers to bounce back. And I think Kelly Hurd mentioned it. I think he summed it up perfectly when he said after the game, thank God we were up 20. Because the Sixers are a much better team than the Atlanta Hawks. And I thought the Sixers will win this series in 5. I still think they win it in 5. They'll rattle off 4 after this. Maybe it goes to 6 games if you get another hot shooting night from the Hawks. But if the Sixers don't turn the basketball over 9 times in the first quarter again, and they don't turn it over, 15 times throughout the rest of the game, or maybe 16 times. I believe the Hawks were 14 times throughout the game. Then I think they'll win. Then I think they'll be fine. And then I think you don't have to worry about exactly giving that many opportunities for the Hawks to knock down threes. So if they change all that, they'll be fine. And it's a matter of them not reverting back to the incredible turnover ratio that they had through the process years, for instance, which is what they basically reverted back to, especially in that first quarter yesterday. But let's talk about something optimistic real quick. And the optimistic part of this is that Joel Embiid played. Joel Embiid played the 38 minutes of this game, or should be 39 minutes with 38 points. That is incredible for a guy that has had the long injury history of Joel Embiid. And the fact that he went out there, and to me, he never looked like he was out of it. There was one time that the camera caught him wincing after he came down awkwardly. I believe it was late in the third quarter. And I got a little concerned, and I'm sure everyone got a little concerned. However, he went out there and played all out throughout this entire game. I do give a lot of credit to the Sixers for coming back in the second half and playing up to their potential, but that I can't even go into that with how pissed off I am at two things, the turnovers and Ben Simmons foul shooting. But let's get to this. That's Joel Embiid's health, which I know is what's going to be the number one thing on a lot of people's minds from this point forward throughout the playoffs. Doc Rivers was asked about the next 48 hours from Sunday's tip-off, the end of the game, I should say Sunday, to Tuesday's tip-off against the Hawks once again for Game 2. Here's what Doc Rivers told the media after the game about what they're going to be doing going forward.
Yeah, tons of treatment, tons of rest. I checked with him probably 5 different times during the game, and he kept saying, I feel great. So I didn't like him in. We had to have him in, but when we were trapping and running around in that last 3 minutes, and obviously we made a run, I did not like him on the floor at that point because I didn't want him doing those things, if you want me to be honest. That's why we just told him to stand back, because those are the ones you get injured on. And so other than that, I thought he played in a space that he was safe other than that last 3 minutes.
The last 3 minutes when it was up and down, I do get worried about Joel Embiid. Not normally, but if I do know about the knee, like when he was coming back from the knee injury where he missed 3 weeks earlier in the season, that had me concerned when you'd see him up and down the court in a fast-paced game. Those 3 minutes there in the fourth quarter especially, I mean, that was unreal. And this was a team that was down 14 points with about 4 minutes to go. They closed the gap to 2. And a lot of that was because Joel Embiid was playing well. Ben Simmons was running the floor. You were hitting shots from the outside. Seth Curry, balls of steel, Seth Curry, with the step-back 3 that he had, I believe, pull you got you under 10. It got you to 7, under 7. So it was really just a really fast-paced game, especially in those final 3 minutes that Doc Rivers just highlighted. So he gets a lot of treatment. But how about Joel Embiid himself? What did he say after the game as far as how the knee was feeling immediately following the loss?
It was all right. Playing on the torn meniscus is, I guess, not easy, but it's all right. Just gotta keep managing it and hope for the best.
Oh, just gotta keep managing it. Hope for the best. Yeah, you do, and we're all crossing our fingers. He just seemed like he was exhausted after the game. Bottom line is, if I didn't know any better, I wouldn't even know he was hurt, except for that one time where he was wincing, like I said. They get more dominant play from him down low. They get more of the aggressive, hopefully free throw shooting, making Ben Simmons, and don't turn the basketball over. And they got this series. Where I really think this series is going to be won is on the defensive end. And once they stepped up and really did a great job in the second half against Trae Young. I mean, this is a guy who had 11 points in the second half in total after going 20 plus in the first. You can't allow that. So the defense that they played in the second half is where they are going to shine in this series. And we can talk about Ben hitting free throws, and I've certainly done that enough already, and I've done it enough on social media with people over the last day. But I don't expect Ben Simmons to all of a sudden start. I mean, even shooting below 50% is just inexcusable. 3 for 10. Like, he's got to be better than that. He was below his already terrible free throw percentage. Like, that's how bad it was. I don't expect him to start making those with regularity. I don't expect that. I certainly don't even expect 30% from the free throw line. But I expect this from Ben. I expect much better defense. I expect him to be on Trae Young in Game 2. I expect when that tip goes up, and the ball comes back down, the guy that's going to be on Trae Young in game 2 is Ben Simmons. I expect this team to really start to shine defensively in this series because they're going to have to be. They're good enough shooters, not 70% good enough shooters, but good enough shooters in this Atlanta Hawks series. It's how they got by the Knicks in 5 games. They are a good enough team from the outside where the Sixers can D up and throw them off their game. You can't allow the open shots that you saw. There was one that was probably the worst of the game and had nothing to do with outside shooting. Third quarter of the game, Trae Young dribbles up the court. Matisse Thybulle is on him. Matisse Thybulle, I don't know what the hell happened, but just lost him. They set a screen on him at the top of the key. He got through it to trail Trae Young. Joel Embiid picked him up on the block. Trae Young dribbled down the baseline, turned around, realized Matisse Thybulle wasn't following anymore. Nice little 7-foot jump shot, little hook, if you will, and he threw it right in. And I thought, now that right there is a perfect example of the defensive ineptitude that the Sixers had on display in that first quarter. Like, you can't have that. You can't have that in that game. Especially you can't have that on a guy like Trae Young. That's how inexcusable it was. This Sixers team needs to have a coming out party when it comes to a guy like Matisse Thybulle in this series, where the rest of the NBA can see just how good he is when he is going to have the opportunity to guard a guy like Trae Young. I mean, Ben Simmons, I think, is going to be the primary defender of Trae Young going forward. I think that's what goes without saying. But I think that when you do have the different rotations, I think this has to be a coming out party for Matisse Thybulle to get more of what you saw in the third and fourth quarter than what you saw in that first quarter. And even Doc Rivers talked about it after the game. And he's always known for praising his players and talking about how good they are and all that stuff, or ignoring a free throw and saying, oh, it's not that big a deal. But in this particular game, when he talked about Matisse Thybulle, he talked about how hard he's working on his outside shot, and you saw him knock down a couple threes for you in this game. But most notably, he said that in the first quarter or first half, Matisse Thybulle was very much up and down. And then in the second half, he was a totally different defender. And he was a guy that he felt very confident of putting on Trae Young to make sure that he was guarding him as tough as he possibly could. And that's what you saw from him. I am going to check in real quick with some people here on social media. But first, I do want to tell you about my good friend, Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Finding that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with? Well, you know what? That's great. But you hate all the pressure that comes next? Of course, there's all the engagement talk, but then there's pressure from actually buying the diamond. Ring shopping can be a pressure-packed situation. Hassle, haggling, finding a store to trust, to figure out all the great stuff that you want to try to figure out when it comes to getting engaged. But you don't have to worry about that at Steven Singer Jewelers. Every day, you get the perfect price. He takes every excuse out of the book. Oh, I don't want to go ring shopping. It's too tough. No, not at Steven Singer. That's why other jewelers really hate this guy. He makes it fun. He makes it easy, so unbelievably easy. And you just have to think, man, these other jewelers, they must hate Steven Singer. Steven is a Philly jeweler that has been making it too easy to buy real diamonds for over 4 decades. He specializes in diamond engagement rings and is a staff of real experts, real jewelers, real people that are ready to help you find the perfect ring or gift at the perfect price. No call center, no haggling, no codes, no discounts, just the best possible, guaranteeing the best value every single day. Check out Steven Singer Jewelers at the other corner of 8th and Walnut or IHateStevenSinger.com. Always fast and free shipping as well. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Let me get into some more of these comments. I said I'd be following you guys throughout the day, and I am certainly going to do that. We'll get to the Phillies comment in a second. Mally, Dan, Benny, what's happening? Let's see here. There is, can't tell me. Already with like of all the stuff we got going on, and we got Sealski conversation. Matisse looked good though yesterday. Really, Don Vito. He did in the second half, and he hit some threes. But defensively, Matisse Thybulle, that's his standard, is what he played in the second half. First half, wildly inconsistent in being able to stay with Trae Young when he was on him. But yeah, second half, sure, I'll agree with you. First half, inconsistent to say the least. Yeah, Joe, I agree there, Don Vito. Joel Embiid looked phenomenal throughout the game. He absolutely did. Why is Danny Green on Trae Young? Just curious. Mally, throughout his career, Danny Green has been a great defender, and he's been able to be a 3-and-D guy. I mean, going back to days with the Spurs, 3-and-D guy. And that's basically how he's made his career. But you thought that you were going to have Ben Simmons on a better matchup size-wise with Bogdanovich. You thought that Danny Green would be able to match up well with Trae Young. That wasn't the case. Danny Green has struggled throughout these playoffs. Yesterday was probably his worst game so far of the postseason. His worst game in a while, actually. But defensively speaking, that's where you're going to be relying on him in this first game of the series. And it wasn't even close, unfortunately. Oh, gotcha. Okay. T's comment was really in the fourth quarter. Copy that. All right. Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. First and third corner up for grabs. Okay, I'll agree with that. You're looking at what else here? Benny's checking in saying Hawks look like a cheat code playing in the first half. Yeah, 2010 cheat code. They did. And I saw some people making comparisons between the Atlanta Hawks and like the 2016, 2017 Golden State Warriors. It certainly felt like that. And I'll tell you what, it really felt like that was the turnovers in the first quarter. It felt like bad dribble, losing his handle, Ben Simmons, 3 the other way. Bad pass down the baseline from Joel Embiid, 3 the other way. Travel from Joel Embiid goes the other way, 3-pointer. It felt like in that first quarter, any mistake you made with a turnover turned into points immediately on the other end. At least points on the other end. Maybe it was a 3-pointer. Maybe it was a 2, whatever it might have been. Getting fouled, it added positive play from the Hawks really throughout that first quarter. Danny Green should never play again, Craig. That's from Craig. I wouldn't necessarily go that far because he is a veteran. He does have experience. He knows how to bounce back. I just haven't seen it yet. 2 guys that I'm very much worried about. Very much one guy, another guy I'm just worried about. I'm worried about Danny Green. I'm very much worried about Shake Milton, and I'm probably even more so worried about Doc Rivers still playing Shake Milton, even though Shake is continuing to struggle. To me, if you have a guy like Maxey stepping up, why am I even seeing Shake Milton on the floor? And I have not been the biggest Furkan Korkmaz fan, but he played well in this particular game, hit some big shots for you, had a nice little runner in the lane for you late in that fourth quarter, helped you come back in that game. But if I am seeing Tyrese Maxey play at the level that he is playing at and playing with confidence and giving you a great spark off the bench, why am I seeing Shake Milton on the floor ever? And I know that one of the biggest gripes people had with Doc Rivers in this first game was that he emptied the bench in the second quarter. And I know a lot of people looked at that and said, well, why the hell is he putting his bench in now? And I got to say, I had the same thought. And then Doc actually explained, this is why you got to watch the press conference, listen to the cuts that I'll play or whatever. But Doc Rivers said after the game, well, what did you want me to do? My first unit was turning the ball over left and right. I had to get something else going. And the only glaring turnover from the bench that I saw really was the George Hill turnover where he tried to find, I believe it was Seth Curry in the corner, and then ended up being a 3 the other way on that turnover. So that was really the one glaring turnover from the second unit that I went, God, everybody's turning the basketball over today. But I felt like after halftime, that's when everything got steady. And that's when you started playing more of the 76ers basketball that we expected. Like I even said going into the series, maybe the Hawks steal a game, right? And maybe this is the game. But the Sixers are going to play this team tight. It's not going to be blowouts. It's not going to be going into the fourth quarter feeling extremely comfortable. I felt like the Sixers would have enough to win and close out the games, but I always felt like the Hawks were going to be a team that was going to get blown out of the water, for instance. And in this game, they're the ones that in the first half blew the Sixers out of the water. Now, in the second, totally different story. I can't say that enough. Danny Green could get Natalie on as the weather girl. All right. First off, Natalie's not going to be a weather girl. So I appreciate you keeping her in your thoughts. I see the Sealski comments. We'll get to those a little bit later when we do our official social media check-in. Luigi's checking in saying we need Zoom off and Allah back on the call. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't mind Hubie Brown, but I thought the broadcast yesterday, like if I'm noticing the broadcast, chances are the broadcast is terrible. Because usually it's zoned out, unless it's Zoo and Allah who we watch through for 80 games, whatever it is, throughout the course of the regular season. Those guys you just can't help but notice because they're great. But usually in the other way with national announcers, that's probably how I should say that. National announcers, if I'm noticing you, it's like a referee. It certainly is like a referee. Where if I'm noticing you, then you're not doing a great job. Like I shouldn't know your name. Put it that way. But yesterday I just thought it was really weird. And for the fact that they didn't see the Danny Green grab in the first quarter that led to a turnover, I thought, and then reverted back to it, referenced it later as a Sixers mistake. I thought was just ridiculous. It was pretty bad yesterday, unfortunately. Dante's checking in. I feel like Shake hold up. How does he eat up this team? More of a process type player. We need to get 12 wins. Thank you, Dante. He seems like that now, and I just can't look at Shake Milton the way I looked at him last year. When I was watching Shake Milton last year, I was watching a guy kind of come into his own a little bit, have that confidence, play out there, hit some outside shots, run the second unit for you. Like you saw a much different thing. Actually run the starting unit for you by the time Ben Simmons was out, obviously. But like I saw a guy I thought coming into his own. I feel like he has really taken a number of steps back this year. And it's not just in the physical way. It's not just in the what do you call it? In actuality, in reality. It's in a metaphorical way as well. Like we expected early on in the season, you saw Tyrese Maxey come off the bench before we would see Matisse Thybulle. And you thought, oh, is Matisse getting pushed aside now for the rookie and the offense and all that? And then it turned out to be not to be the case a couple of weeks into the season. And you thought maybe Matisse Thybulle's confidence was going to take a hit because Maxey was getting more minutes. It all balanced out in the very near future for Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle. The guy you haven't seen bounce back is Shake Milton. Of the three guys that you expected to be key contributors off the bench, Shake Milton's fallen by the wayside. Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey have gotten better as the season went on, while Shake Milton has gotten worse. Maybe it's the fact that Maxey is taking minutes from him, Thybulle's taking minutes from him, and then at the deadline, you also get George Hill. Maybe that's kind of hit him, and maybe he feels like he's taking too much pressure upon himself. But I'd be good for the rest of this series if I don't see a lot of Shake Milton, regardless of the turnovers of the first unit. You have to think if you're Doc Rivers, you're going to have a lot more confidence in your first unit not turning the basketball over than you are your reserves, for instance. I got more confidence in Ben Simmons leading this offense, facilitating this offense, even with a couple of high dribbles that he loses, than I do George Hill coming in to run it, or especially Shake Milton coming in to run it. I know you're going to give these guys minutes. You're going to give these guys time on the bench to rest them so you have them for the full game. But, man, when you're seeing this team struggle as a whole the way they did, yeah, I'm fine. I don't need to see Shake Milton be the guy that needs to try to right the ship there. Thomas is checking in saying I need Jim Jackson back on the show. I'll get Jim on again. Don't you worry. Man, a lot of Phillies conversation. I'm shocked, but just because of how bad it was, I guess, with the base running in the first game, they won 2-3. Dan's checking in saying been on Eds since I watched it. Is that breaking? That's a reference to a TV show. You guys are really obsessed with this weather girl, and I don't blame you for it. I know I need weather girl conversation on a day like today where I feel like my head's going to explode from watching bad 76ers basketball, unfortunately. But here's going forward, what I think you need to see. Going forward, I've already mentioned this many times. Ben Simmons on Trae Young, all right? I think you're going to see Ben play 40-plus minutes going forward, and I've always said this. Ben Simmons, if they wanted to expand the regular season in the NBA to 100 games, Ben Simmons could play 100 games. This is the time in this series to make sure he goes out there and he gets those minutes because you're going to need him, especially if the Hawks not even shoot at the rate they were shooting in the first half, like knocking down, 16 threes throughout the game plus. That's 20-plus threes throughout the game. 16 they had early on in the game. Like, that's insane. They're not going to do that again. But Ben Simmons playing defense on Trae Young is something that needs to happen now, right now. Like, whatever the hotel is for the Hawks, Ben needs to go there and start playing defense on Trae Young right now, all right? But after that, the next thing you need to see in this series throughout is protecting the basketball. And that's not, like, the Sixers are a good enough team where they can simply play within themselves without having to go to that extra level, whatever it is, without trying to do too much, and simply go back to how you have seen them play throughout the entire season. And early on in the game, throughout the turnovers, they get Doc Rivers on the sideline saying just that to his team on the bench. Every guy was trying to do too much. The Sixers are a good enough basketball team, which is why they're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. They're a good enough basketball team to play within themselves, not having to overreach to the point where they're going to be making mistakes at the rate they were making them in the first half against the Hawks. They just play within themselves without trying to do too much, and they got this series wrapped up. That's a second adjustment I need to say. Just playing within themselves. Protecting the basketball, playing within themselves. Ben Simmons on Trae Young. And then finally, the bench has to shorten up. I was shocked, and we were having this conversation a couple of weeks ago. I never thought that you were going to see this many guys off the bench and into the game as you have seen throughout the playoffs. You're talking about 9, 10, 11 guys getting run in the playoffs is insane to me. And in this game against the Hawks, where, you were down so much and you had to try to change things up to give your starters a break because they were in such a funk with the turnovers. Like, I get it to a degree with Doc Rivers, and the way he explained it after the game made sense. But to the point of Shake Milton in the game as much as he was, the point of watching him get a key possession in the first half where you're trying to close the first half out on a positive note, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me from that point on. And the bench needs to start getting shorter. Dwight Howard, I think, needs to give you some better minutes, and he's been very consistent for you all year. I'm not too worried about him. But if you are going to have the deeper bench, which I think is still going to happen, minus one player in particular, Shake Milton, then I think you're going to have to rely on other guys like a Dwight Howard, like a Tyrese Maxey, continuing to rely on him, and like a George Hill. That's something that most teams do when they shorten the bench for the postseason. It seems like as the season was winding down, the postseason was getting underway, Doc Rivers has done the opposite. Instead of contracting that roster, he's expanded it, which just seems insane. We'll see if that's, and I know that's what upset a lot of people in that first half especially. So we'll continue to follow that, and hopefully that's the way things will happen here. Farzi teased us with Lisa Ann. I haven't seen Lisa. We'll get Lisa on eventually. All right, we have a good rapport, Lisa and I, and she's a fantasy sports expert. So, fantasy sports expert. We'll get her on at some point. Don't you worry. Want to get one more comment in here. I got your Danny Green should never play again. All right, Dan. Yeah. Defensively speaking, I would say that they were absolutely lackluster. I would agree wholeheartedly. And I think I've said that multiple times throughout the show. Let me tell you guys real quick about the great people at PHLSportsNation.com. That's Philadelphia Sports Nation. You can check out our friends over there at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs, social media as well. Philadelphia Sports Nation, that's PHL Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. And how about DraftKings? Oh, boy. I was telling you the other day about betting balls and strikes in baseball. How about next basket made, whether it's a 3 or a 2? That's a lot of fun in the playoffs. I was able to win some money off of that. This is what you got to do, though. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app. DraftKings Sportsbook. Use promo code FARZI. Promo code FARZI, and you can take advantage of a great offer right now. DraftKings Sportsbook putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits when you use promo code FARZI. If you don't have the DraftKings app, download it right now to your phone. Plug in the promo code FARZI and make sure you take advantage of all they have to offer, especially this great offer where you can turn $1 into $100 in free site credits. Actually, you know what? My brother actually just downloaded the app. He was playing basketball. He was betting a little bit. He was over the house yesterday. Won himself a couple of bucks right there. Pick any basketball team that is still in contention and bet $1 on them. If that team wins, $100 in site credits when you use promo code FARZI. Don't forget, DraftKings Sportsbook offers great odds and promotions on baseball, hockey, and so much more all week long. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code FARZI. That's promo code FARZI when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on basketball, on any basketball team of your choice that's still in contention to win, and if they do, you turn $1 into $100 in free site credits with promo code FARZI. For a limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Wager to pay out in site credits. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Friday. Guess where I'll be Friday? Steak and Maine. That's right. Can't wait. First time there in a while. Really looking forward to it. Fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you will enjoy the highest quality prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that at an extensive wine list, including their own Cavada Cellars wines. Open every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Steak in Maine and Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself at steakandmaine.com for more information. Oh, how about Fan Up? I'll be seeing my boys from Fan Up coming up later today. Got the golf outing going on. I'm going to go out there. Athletes for Care. Look forward to seeing these guys. Philly fans, if you want to be shot callers, big ballers, and all that, you got to get the Fan Up app. The days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. Go to the App Store, download the Fan Up app right now. Super fun. Daily, weekly contest, answer fun questions, rise on their leaderboard, and squad up with your friends to even win more. Fan Up, I'm doing it with my friends. It's a great time. See for yourself just how fun it is. You can win great brand prizes. Like I said, rise on their leaderboard. You can win a pair of Jordans. You can win a Peloton bike. You can win a $200 Nike gift card they were giving away just the other day. All sorts of great stuff by simply signing up for the Fan Up app in the App Store. Download the Fan Up app and use promo code FANUP to get 2,000 bonus points right out of the gate. Any day, any week, any season, you could be the real MVP with Fan Up. That's Fan Up. May the best fan win. Wanted to get to this. I mentioned it earlier. Normally around this time, we'll do our morning rush segment. Take a break from the Sixers for a second here. Nick Sirianni addressed the media on Friday, and he was late to his press conference. And this will be our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. This was interesting to me. He was late because he was doing his favorite thing in the world, competing. That's right. He was competing. Here's why Nick Sirianni was late to his press conference on Friday afternoon.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm late. Greg Ward just got done beating me at a three-point contest. Not too happy about it. So, here now, though. Sorry about that.
I love the idea of the three-point contest. This has become a big thing in football. You saw Carson Wentz come down to the final two in his knockout competition. It was against members of the Colts. Similar thing right now with Nick Sirianni, just in terms of playing his own player, Greg Ward, in a three-point contest. You could tell he was perturbed. The man loves to compete. All right, that was a fun little thing from his press conference. This was a serious thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are right now in an area of the football offseason that I like to appropriately entitle the danger zone. And why are we in the danger zone right now? Because it's between the mini camp and training camp. We're in a period of time over the next month and a half or so that gets very dangerous. Next 50 days, that is the danger zone, simply because this is where players tend to get in trouble. They're not practicing. They're not at the NovaCare complex. I'm sure they're still working out, but they're kind of having free reign. And they're thinking, right before the season starts, I need to step into the danger zone and hopefully not get into too much trouble. Don't do anything stupid. Don't go out there and be a dummy. You don't want to be like right now. You want your name out of the news if you're a football player. Right now, you want your name out of the news. And Nick Sirianni said that was part of his speech to the team. He was asked by Ruben Frank of NBC Sports Philly about what you tell the team before they disperse for the next 50 days. Here's Nick Sirianni and the message to the squad.
What we talked about, I kind of ended our last day out there today with my message of the three things that I kind of wanted them to do here and continue to create good habits. Right. And so when we talk about our habits, I just told them this. I told them, our habits are our core values. It's connecting. Continue to find ways to connect with guys. Continue to find ways to compete with guys. Right. Or compete. And really, when you're by yourself at times, when you're working by yourself as a football player in that summertime before the fall season starts, it's how do you compete with yourself? I talked about accountability to them. And accountability is not going to show up you're not going to go out there every day and someone going to be asking you what they do, but it's the day over and over and over again, each day in and out. If you do what you're supposed to do each day in and out, that's going to show up when comes time for the fall. And I just encourage them, to, yes, get in the books. The football IQ is so important, to get in the books, to watch the tapes over again from our practices, and to watch the installs over again. And then when you're out in the field, work on those fundamentals that we talked about. The other thing we talked about, so my message was create good habits, or continue to practice good habits, stay out of trouble, and then be ready to come into camp in the best physical shape of your life.
Those are all things that you have to listen to as a head coach, or have to say as a head coach, to get you ready, to get your team ready for coming back during this time where they're in the, one more time, danger zone. And if I'm the Eagles, if I'm an Eagles player, like, your backs are against the wall right now. You're coming off a 4-win season. You have a sophomore quarterback, essentially. You have a first-year quarterback in terms of being the starter going into the season. Like, everyone has to be on edge right now. You don't know what you're going to get from Jalen Hurts. I was having this conversation with a couple of people over the weekend, not in the Philly market, that are talking about Jalen Hurts. So what do you think about Jalen Hurts? Like, that kind of conversation. And I'm like, I think he can play. I just don't know if he can carry a team. And that might have to happen this season. And if you're a member of the Eagles, you have to know that. That's why everything from Jump Street has to be serious. You have a rookie head coach running this team. And there's already articles being written about how much this team already loves Nick Sirianni, which is great for a first-year head coach, a guy who's never done this before, a guy that came in here in a press conference that made us all go, is this a prank? For the team to love this guy already, fine. But I don't think it's really going to matter much until the season starts. And I know that a lot of people do have, like, it's a logical way to think. Why am I going to judge a guy I've never seen coach a football game, right? Why am I going to judge that guy yet? I think a lot of players are reserving that same type of thing. You could build up some great equity right now as the head coach, which it seems like Nick Sirianni's doing. But once that season starts, once the opening kickoff happens, man, it's all about your play calling. It's all about your scheme. It's all about how you're putting the game plan together. That's all that's going to matter. Whether or not you played him in the three-point shooting contest is not going to matter. The minute that bell rings, so to speak, you better be ready to go. And that's the ultimate test. Everything else is just stuff to talk about up until then. Minute that opening kickoff happens of the season, we'll see how much these guys love him. And I'm rooting for him to love him. I want to love the guy. I'm already rooting for him. What am I going to do? Root against an Eagles head coach? What the hell? Like, what is he? Who's he? Chip Kelly in his third year? Of course not. That's what I'll be looking for when it comes to this this Eagles squad going forward in the Nick Sirianni era of the Philadelphia Eagles. So, so far enjoyable. And so far it seems like the players are really taking to him. But that's pretty much what you have to tell them before they go into the next 50-day period of going out there and hopefully not getting in any trouble. So that was from Nick Sirianni right there. A lot of people are already ripping my golf game. I'm not a good golfer. If I go out golfing, generally I will shoot in the 90s. On a really bad day, I'll shoot like 100. But generally speaking, I'm like in the 90s. And yes, I count everything. I take a 9 on a hole. All right? That's right. I've taken an 11 on a hole before. Because I'm all about honesty, being upfront. How about that? What else do we have here? athletesforcare.org. Thank you for the person that asked. athletesforcare.org. People can check it out right there. I'll be actually golfing with the Nasty Knuckles boys. I think somebody knew that in the chat. Did I mention that last week? Yeah, so I'll get all the great the Flyers takes for you for tomorrow. James is checking in saying, Farzy over-under on golf 130. Under. Bet the under. Plus it's an outing, so I'm sure it's a scramble, which always take like 7-8 hours. But I don't think I'll be shooting over 130 today, but thank you. DraftKings has him at minus 240. Is that good value? I don't know if that's good value or not. Want to discuss how Todd Harriman's knocked out. All right. So I got a meat guy. Okay. I got a butcher in South Philly, Anthony Lombardi, great guy. And I started going to his shop some months ago when he told me he had veal. And not everybody had veal during pandemic. So I went down there to make some, when I make my meatballs, I make veal, pork, and beef, which is the general mix. And I go down there for the mix and struck up a friendship. Great guy. I walk in and he goes, man, you had me cracking up yesterday. I go, what do you mean? And he goes, Hugh Douglas and Todd Harriman's. That was hilarious. I agree. Those two are hilarious. Isolated. Together, fighting in training camp 15, 16 years ago, even more hilarious. Just the brief description of the story in case you missed it on Friday, guys. The brief story was Todd Herremans and Hugh Douglas got in a fight at training camp in 2005. Todd's rookie year, Hugh Douglas's last year. And Todd popped Hugh in the face. And Hugh, who has in his own words says, I am about that life, had nothing for Todd Herremans. He got punched in the face and went, nope, and just walked off the field. And Todd went after him. They struggled a little bit. Kerfluffle, I believe is how we termed it. And that was it. And Hugh said because he did not have the fire in his belly to fight back, that's when he really knew, man, I am done. And that was it. And then in retrospect, he said, Andy Reid probably looked at me at that time and went, yeah, Hugh's done. And that was the end of it. It was a hilarious story, the way the both of them told it. We had Todd on earlier in the show. We had Hugh on later, so we asked for Hugh's rebuttal of Todd's story. Todd did it, to his credit, Todd didn't give a lot of detail on it because he essentially won the fight. But Hugh was just like, yeah, that basically ended my career. I always thought it was just the shoulder injury, the pec injury, I think that Hugh Douglas had. But apparently, no, it was the mindset of, yeah, I'm done. If I'm not willing to fight Todd Herremans right now at practice, I'm pretty much done. Thanks for recalling that. Much appreciated. Brett, I'm telling you, man, I don't smoke. I had a couple cigars over the weekend. Had some family in town. I said my brother was over yesterday. My cousin came down from North Jersey, and we were hanging out, having some bourbons, drinking some bourbon and smoking some cigars. It was a lovely time until the Sixers ruined my weekend. But yeah, no, I pretty much just stick to the cigars, my friend. Yeah, I'm not. I don't really smoke anything else. I hate to disappoint you. Class move by Todd, according to Rick, saying that walking off the field was probably the best way. Oh no, punching him. Oh, class move by Todd to not go into greater detail. Yes, I agree. I think that's what you're referencing right there. All right, folks, listen, I got to get back to the Sixers here because it's still driving me nuts. I mentioned what I need to see for game 2. I mentioned my prediction for what you're going to see for game 2. One of the best things to come out of post-game from game 1 was Ben Simmons saying he wants to play Trae Young. I assume Ben is just going to listen to his coach in the start of a series saying that he's not hey, look, if you're Ben Simmons, you know your best defender on the team, and you could guard 1 through 5, and your coach says, all right, when we go out, we're going to have Danny Green start on Trae Young. I assume that Ben Simmons is going to jump up out of his seat and go, whoa, coach, I'm going to guard Trae Young. Maybe after one game where it fails, and then you play against Trae Young in the game at some point, and you have great success like you did in the second half, maybe that's where you could have a little bit more of a case for it, and Ben Simmons would jump up and say, nope, I got him for game 2. When they tip off tomorrow night, I expect Ben Simmons to be on Trae Young. I also expect Ben Simmons to play Trae Young physically, like he talked about after the game yesterday. But what I also expect, unfortunately, is Trae Young getting calls. He certainly got calls against the Sixers in game 1. He got calls against the Knicks throughout that 5-game series. In this particular game, this series, throughout the playoffs, as long as the Hawks are in it, however many games this goes, Trae Young will get calls. If he's going to get a call with Matisse Thybulle running stride for stride with him, and then Trae Young bumps into him, and he gets that call where there was no contact on the shot itself, Trae Young is going to get calls. If Trae Young's going to get that call against Matisse Thybulle, you bet your ass he is going to get that call against Ben Simmons. 1,000% of the time. And it's not a reputation thing. It's not a, hey, rookie or sophomore in the league, you got to learn, you got to earn this. Like Tyrese Maxey not getting calls was totally, oh, you're a rookie, you got to earn that call. Matisse Thybulle is a good enough defender, and I think it's known throughout the NBA there's a good enough defender. He should be considered when it comes to getting calls and not getting calls. That was an instance against Trae Young where he should have gotten the benefit of not even the benefit of the doubt, but shouldn't have had the foul called on him, especially when contact was initiated by Trae Young. I know that's not how they normally call it in the NBA, but to me, it's one of the most Bush League things that an athlete does in basketball is initiate contact as an offensive player, and somehow the foul is always on the defender. It drives me nuts. But the perfect example of why they shouldn't make that call is the Trae Young on Matisse Thybulle call in the third quarter that I thought was absolutely atrocious in that game. To me, it's just something that needs to be thrown out of the NBA, and hopefully that happens. But I do expect Ben Simmons on Trae Young, but I would also expect Trae Young to get a lot of the calls against the 6'10" Ben Simmons. And Ben mentioned it twice after the game in two different questions. When he was asked about guarding Trae Young, he said, if the refs let me play and let me play physical, I need to be on him. I just don't think they're going to let him be physical enough to the point where he's going to be allowed to stay on Trae Young. If I'm Doc Rivers, I'm keeping a close eye on it because Trae Young will draw those fouls. And then you got to worry about getting your best defender off the floor. Then you also have to worry about somebody else coming in to facilitate your offense. Where, and look, as great as he's been, I don't want Tyrese Maxey running this offense for the vast majority of it. Maybe your second option after that is actually watching Tobias Harris run this offense, as he had a couple of times throughout the season, where he had been your point guard, actually, your facilitator, after Ben Simmons had some foul trouble throughout the regular season or dealing with an injury throughout the season. That's where you have seen Tobias Harris come in and play a little bit more of that point forward position that you've seen so normally from Ben Simmons. I don't want to see him get into that foul trouble, and I know you don't either, folks. So let's hope that he avoids that. I hope that you get the defense from him in game 2 going up against Trae Young, but I certainly hope that you're not seeing him get the foul calls on him throughout. Brett's asking me about the golf game, if I'm going to be golf with on Monday with Todd and Riley. I'm golfing with Riley. I'm not going to be golfing with Todd. I will see Todd. I will not be golfing with Todd at Athletes for Care today. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for the interaction on YouTube. Was rattling through them throughout the show. I do appreciate it greatly. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow on a fine Tuesday morning. This is the Farzy Show. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program, and my thanks as well to Buzz Sports Entertainment. Do a great job putting this on. Remember, throughout the entire playoffs, get in on all the action with DraftKings and DraftKings Sportsbook and use promo code Farzy to take advantage of turning $1 into $100 in site credit. So make sure you take advantage of that as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Hopefully I'm reporting back to you tomorrow on a great golf game between me, Riley Cote, Nasty, and Neil Little, as a matter of fact. I believe he's the other member of our foursome. I shouldn't say that. I'm the other member of that foursome. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for checking in on the show today. Much appreciated. Have a great rest of your day. Hopefully the Sixers bounce back tomorrow night. We'll get into that more tomorrow morning. Have a great day, everybody. Take it easy.